All right, we'll be back from the break, and you're still watching Smart Means Business. This is your daily Kickstarter that gives you details in regards to business updates and how you can go by in your business day. Well, besides that, with this hour of the show, we kickstart it off from the perspective of getting motivated and inspiration, of which we start with our business tip of the morning. The business tip says don't limit yourself. Many people limit themselves to what they think they can do. You can go as far as your mind lets you. What you believe, remember, you can achieve. And away from our business tip of the day, let's get our eyes set up onto our business quote this morning. And Bo Bennett says, success is not what you have, but it is who you are. Success is not what you have, but it is who you are. Success is not what you have, but who you are. And pretty much trying to put us into a perspective of understanding that, well, sometimes we determine success maybe on things to do with what I'm supposed to achieve or what is likely to shape up my life, but then we forget that success is highly driven or is supposed to rotate around us as the people driving forward to get these things. At the end of the day, you do realize that for the time you spend on earth trying to cope up with life, there is a lot to do with your personality. There is a lot to do with your attitude. There is a lot to do with your mindset. There is a lot to do with your approach to things, how you look at things, how you attack a certain situation, how you handle yourself in situations that do not add up, or how you put yourself in, in strategies whereby how you position yourself, I should say. And that is exactly what this particular quote is saying, that sometimes we take our eyes off the mere fact that success is who we are, not what we have. Because if it was based on what we have, then a few would be successful. But simply because not everybody has got what they want to have, but then we term them as successful because they put them into that position, or they carry themselves as successful individuals, and that is how we relate to them, and that is how we feel for them, because we believe in that way they are the successful people that we deserve to be having. And well, besides that, now let's have our eyes glued into something quite different, this time around on a different angle, as we get into understanding what is coming in from the world of business. But besides that, we look at the social media trends, and one of the social media trends that we were having on the timeline were rotating around money. And of course, everyone needs money in the world that we are living in. The reason you wake up every day to work, open up your shop, open up your business, is you need to have money. The reason as to why you render a service which is not volunteering, or which is not driven by voluntary activities or work, so a mindset, is because you want to be paid for that service. And this is exactly what this time is getting us into. Our social media trends rotating around money. What were the Ugandans on the timeline? Not only that, what were the Twitter users saying about money, and what you should know about money, obviously. Let's get it done with our social media trends this morning to see what is happening there. West at Oba_West says how it may be with my money for the remaining month in 2023. It clearly shows you that for him, he will be holding his money really tight this time around. He will be holding it with a lot of attention and not to give it to anyone else. and that is West at Oba_West. Then at Parisandio with the tweet that, what do you mean I have to work to have money? She's asking. Then Art of Life at @artoflife_ says, make money, act broke. This is the way. Well, the Art of Life is strictly taking us through situations of the same kind of way that you need to at least make money and live without overshowing that you have the money, maybe. Then at Dresskayo says, everybody trying to be like everybody. Get some money and then be yourself. That is, of course, coming in from Dre Sky, saying that everybody trying to be like everybody. So get money and be yourself. Then Faith Abiola Oyodepo at Faith Oyodepo says, you need to improve your educational base consistently. You should invest money. Then there's time, there's energy, there's mental resources, etc. to acquire knowledge. Don't be more interested in buying things you can show off than investing in educating yourself. You are meant to be a pace setter. Definitely that. That is something I should even put it as a quote for the morning. You're meant to be a pace setter. You shouldn't be acquiring things to show the world that you've got certain things, and you should be able to at least invest in educating yourself. Learn something new every day. Teach yourself something new. Be challenged by new things, and try to be a pace setter or create something. Now, T-Spice Kitchen says, unrelated, but this money scarcity problem taught me a lesson, Sha. I learned and practiced financial discipline by force. Stopped spending money on some unnecessary things and focused on the basics. Am I the only one? I think this happens with age and with time and responsibility. That once you start to realize that you need to start budgeting on how to manage your finances, financial discipline is a key aspect in life, and it's something that every person needs to be part of. Like, we really need to take it as a very serious note. Now, at Sage God at Fevson says, making money should be a daily goal. I should say, it should be a daily goal. It should be a daily vision for everybody. You should be someone who is focused on making that money. Now, Tiana Lessix says that the best money management tip will always be to earn more money. Lol. And there's always a saying that says that sometimes we do not want to cut our spending. We want to have the money to maintain our spending. But sometimes, even though you get the money to maintain your spending, you end up overlapping the spending. You end up trying to again live another kind of life that is higher than what you earn. So the same thing comes in with this tweet, which says the best money management tip will always be to earn more money. Then you're not managing it. By making more money doesn't mean you're good at managing, because regardless of how much you make, but you can't manage, or you have no financial discipline whatsoever, it doesn't seem likely that you will be able to make some good use of that money. That's it for our social media trends this morning. I don't know about you, but money is some important aspect in life. It does come second after life and good health. So that is the world we are living in today. People are actually forgetting brotherhood, friendships, relationships for money. So it clearly shows you that apart from the fact that you need to prioritize your life and good health, then money has definitely got a place in there, in space. You're watching Smart Means Business. And now we're time for us to get into our business update of the day. The other business update this time around, rotating around human rights budgeting. There's a need to investigate the actual beneficiaries of the proposed funds that actually head out to at least accommodate the fight that is for human rights, and of course funding for human rights activations in this update. Honorable Odur Jonathan, Member of Parliament, Erute South, has this to say in regards to the human rights budgeting in the country.
The government is expected to guarantee the link between human rights budgeting, the who, what, and how, and then end by giving you some few illustrations as a sample to help the members of the opposition develop a good alternative. So I will not spend a lot of time on what a national budget is, because Julius touched on it. He mentioned about the fiscal and monetary elements of it, the micro and macroeconomic outlooks, and he also mentioned about the revenue and expenditure. So basically the national budget gives us the projected revenue on one side and the expenditure, but relating it to our human rights approach, we'll have to pay critical attention on how that revenue is raised and from whom. And then on the expenditure side, we want to critically look at who, the allocation, and who this budget goes to. So I would like to start by looking at the national budget and human rights. So it is acceptable and known worldwide that government is the guarantor of human rights. And therefore it bears the duty to respect, to protect, and fulfill the human rights of its citizens. So when government is generating revenue, when government is allocating resources, and when government is spending, it has a bearing on the human rights of its citizens. That is the foundation for human rights budgeting. So careful thoughts must be given to the implication of raising that revenue, allocating that revenue, and expenditure. And I'm going to illustrate later on how this comes into play. So where do we get the government obligations that the government must respect, fulfill, and protect? So in our constitution, chapter 4, also referred to as the Bill of Rights, outlines to us those obligations and commitments that the government must promote, must protect, must fulfill. I think when you look at articles from around articles 18, 19 to about 51, all those articles, which we are not going to cite here, relates in detail how government should fulfill those commitments. On the other hand, there are also international protocols, treaties, covenants that the government has ratified. And if you look at Maputo, for example, the Abuja declarations, all those where the government has committed itself to, those one gives us the obligations and commitments. So those will provide the frameworks where we can hold government accountable. So the obligations that are stated in those frameworks must be budgeted for in specific terms. It is not enough for government to say we are committed. It is not enough for the government to say we are committed to respect, to promote, to fulfill. But there must be a budget in specific terms to fulfill those commitments. So what does it entail? The human rights-based approach to budgeting entails the increase in availability of resources, accessibility of the services, acceptability, and the quality and quantity. The word quality is missing. The quality and quantity of goods and services available to the citizenry. So we are going to look at those elements in particular detail. It seeks to reduce the inequalities and inequities. And this is an area where Julius has spoken about. The inequalities and inequities. And we can easily relate to the areas where we come from. If you look at the different regions of this country, you look at the plight of the women, you look at the plight of the youth, you can easily identify the inequalities and inequities that arise out of allocation. But when it comes also to raising revenue, the inequalities and inequities relating to taxation, for example, who is bearing the heaviest burden of the tax in this country? Are they the right people? Who is benefiting from the exemptions? who is benefiting from the tax holidays. This is an area where we pay particular attention to. So there are principles that I've outlined which are very common. The principle of participation, transparency, accountability, non-discrimination, and most importantly, the remedies available if those violations and abuses takes place.
All right, human rights budgeting and a need to investigate. It does seem like in our country everything needs to be investigated. I'm joined by Baridi Andrew in the morning here for what you could call the breakfast meeting of a discussion. To break down something, one or two, in regards to this kind of conversation rotating around human rights budgeting and the need to investigate the actual beneficiaries of the proposed funds.
Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Great. Well, now getting straight to that discussion, he mentioned something that was so interesting. That was the aspect of when it comes to raising revenue, the fairness regarding that, and when it comes to allocation, to me, it brings me to a factor that there are some areas which probably bring in quite lots in terms of, like revenues to be used for the budget, but at the end, when it comes to allocation of those areas, there is unfair allocation of the resources. And now, talking about human rights here, we see that as they are budgeting, you're putting this budget into there. You need to ensure you prioritize human beings, not just for the sake of budgeting, just for the sake of budgeting. So you have to have human rights into the perspective. And actually, one of the key elements here, when I look at when it comes to human rights, let's take a look at the justice system. When it comes to how do you allocate, funds. When you talk about something like that involves human rights, you need to think of allocating a fund towards executing it. Like if I can give an example of the justice system, like I was saying, in case we are trying to promote fair justice, such that suspects get a fair hearing. I'm just trying to give an example because this is one of the areas where human rights are being violated in Uganda. When it comes to the justice system, if a suspect, you have no right to have an advocate for you and all that. But now imagine if you talk about fairness in that means you have to pay, you have to allocate resources to the people that are going to investigate the crime. To come and prove that actually this person is innocent. Is innocent. So you have to allocate funds to the other people, the judiciary, the lawyers, all that is all human rights budgeting we're trying to talk about. Because once a country has a fair system in terms of justice, of course, law and order will be followed, and fairness, where fairness is, definitely business has to thrive. So you get to understand the importance of allocating resources towards human rights, most especially if you're to look at the justice system, of the country.
Well, of course, and towards human rights, if we to look at pretty much kind of this kind of breakdown of things, someone may ideally try to consider bringing this kind of situation. For example, when someone mentions investigation, my kind of view is why then should we again head into investigation? That means the funds that are always being put in place, for example, for human rights activations, because this is more like activations, trying to at least put in place different measures to ensure that people are respected. People are treated equally, and of course these funds end up getting into mainly activations, trainings, and all these things. Not entirely supposed to go to an individual.
Of course, not an individual, but of course, when it comes to, we are looking at a group of individuals that deserve justice, and the reason as why sometimes justice may not be really fulfilled, it's because the people that are responsible to execute the justice probably have they are frustrated in a way, and it all comes back to the financial frustrations. So if you allocate money for the detectives to investigate these crimes, it's not just an individual. I'm talking about quite lots of individuals that need to be that need a fair hearing in that perspective. So that's why those funds need to be allocated just right in there.
Okay. And of course that is Honorable Dur Jonathan, MP Route South. was actually also giving in his particular verdict on the same matter in regards to the kind of human rights budgeting and what needs to be done in one way or the other, especially going to certain individual groups. But also looking at human rights as a factor that is of a huge concern in the country and in Africa, I should say. Besides this talk about funding and everything, I think this also goes back to the humanitarian cause of what needs to be done, even before we tap into these kind of engagements of saying, well, this and this, this and this, all this and this.
Yeah, now like of recent, now the poverty report was released, and on such a report, we shall clearly know which division, which part of the country, which region probably needs more attention when it comes to allocation of resources. So that comes back that that if we are budgeting, we need to prioritize the most needy. Now we are talking about the human rights. So from that perspective, we shall get to know that, for example, if the regions which really need to be catered for, now, for example, the recent saga of iron sheets, that is not right. That is money budgeted for those for that area. It's so we are not putting into human. I'm assuming if Karamoja is supposed to receive, probably, I'm just estimating, about 500,000 iron sheets.
Yes.
Have 500 iron sheets really reached Karamoja region? So that's all human rights. I mean, if they don't go there, you're denying them a right to have access to services that they need to have access to. So that's how I really see this.
Because ideally, when you look at human rights budgeting, this is driven around decisions on how money is raised, allocated, and mainly how, for example, if there is a budget and money is supposed to go to a given constituency,
exactly,
how is it allocated? How is it going to fit in the human rights of the people? Because for you as an individual, there is what you call a human right and a human need. But it's your right as a citizen, for example, to get a certain social amenity from the government. And of course, good health and of course, health facilities and everything. But failure to do so is undermining you, is undermining your kind of right to certain things as an individual.
And actually, majority of Ugandans are so ignorant about the rights that they really have to. For example, if you study the constitution of Uganda, you get to realize that you have quite so many things you're entitled to. In certain countries, actually, the constitution it's mandatory to study it at the university. You need to study the constitution of your country, whether you are a citizen or just you're a foreigner. You probably, if you go to the United States to pursue education, you have to study the constitution. It's mandatory to know. When you know that, when you know the constitution and you know what you're entitled to as a citizen, you'll be in position to demand for it to the courts. I mean, to the laws. You sue government through the laws, because you know what you need, what you're entitled to as a citizen of Uganda. But it's not here in Uganda, and that's why human rights are being abused. Even when the budget funds are allocated towards activating human rights related activities, nothing comes up.
Well, and of course that is it for the concern to do with human rights budgeting here in the country. And as we're heading into the break, remember that now the Markets on the Zabo platform are officially opened. So all you need to do is dial *292#, follow the prompts, kickstart off your investment with the platform. Zabo is giving you that advantage. Remember that you will be able to experience a chance to invest in securities and other products available. Now, for example, if you want to invest in government bonds, all you need to do is have a minimum amount of 15,000 Ugandan shillings. You can choose a preferred maturity period for that bond from 2 to 3 years up to 20 years, any you wish to invest in. And of course, start your investment journey with Zabo. Zabo, my money, my future. Altex East Africa, do something new. The opening time is 8:15 a.m., closing time is 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. The markets are fully closed only on weekends and on public holidays. After the break, we have sports business and entertainment business. So stick around for more updates regarding information from those two sectors.